Good morning. My phone's reminding me that it's time for our quarterly meeting and our town meeting. So it's going to be abbreviated today. It's going to be 2 topics. So we're going over our quarter-to-date financials, and then we're going on to look at budget projections for the new year. So we've got 2 different slides. So just letting you know that we're going to have a type of town meeting, but it is our quarterly meeting. So I just wanted to say good morning and thank you for being here. Sorry that we were not able to have town meeting on Monday. The executive and leadership team were all in Orlando, kicking off the new year with all the other executives and leaders from Westminster Communities of Florida. So Jane wisely said, hey, let's still have it this week. Why don't you move it to the first date that you're able? And so today, Friday, was when we were able to do it. I'm sorry, Jane Hudson. Who did I call you? Oh, I don't know why. She said, yes, she wisely said to, thanks, Lynn. Lynn is heavily monitoring me this morning, so thank you. So we want to start out with our patriotic song that's been chosen this morning by Miss Patsy. Thank you for God Bless America. God. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. And this morning, Lynn Kimmel will do our invocation. We are expecting our new chaplain, I'm crossing my fingers, on Monday. So he's moving from Texas, so this is a long trek for him and his wife to move here to Tallahassee. So we're very excited to have them here on Monday. Meanwhile, Lynn has graciously agreed to do our invocation. Good morning.
I don't know if any of you had, this is going to make me cry, so I'm going to tell you right up front. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to see that incredible sunrise this morning. I did not. But my husband sent me a picture, and as soon as his picture came through, my son called. Mom, you have got to go look at that sunrise. In my 43 years, I've never seen one like this. This is awesome. And when I looked at their pictures, and it reminded me of the scripture from Lamentations that says, great is your faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, your hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for your faithfulness to us day after day. We are so undeserving of all the mercies and grace and goodness that you give to us. Lord, thank you for Westminster Oaks, for this place that we can come and we can share and we can be friends and we can work and we can love on each other. Lord, thank you for Shannon and Vicki that lead us. I pray that you will just guide this meeting, give us peace and understanding as we go through it, and give Shannon wisdom as she answers questions and imparts information to all of us. We just love you, Jesus, and thank you for all that you do for us, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I have cough drops here. I have been coughing, and so I apologize if I start coughing again. I'll try to take care of that immediately. So we're here to review our quarterly meeting, quarter to date 2. So you know that our new year begins April 1st, ironically. And so April 1st, we've already gone through that. So this is the July through September quarterly financials, year to date, that we're going to share with you. And I apologize that some of it's repetitious. Some of the the descriptions and so forth do not change from quarter to quarter and year to year. So we're going to show you revenues and expenses and go over some of the drivers, which are monthly charges for AL, IL, and home care. We also bring in some revenue from maintenance, not very much, some from housekeeping, some of the extra services they bring in, and therapy services. And this is one of our newest revenue drivers here is outpatient, which is going really, really well. Many people take advantage of our outpatient therapy services, so we're very thankful for that program. Nursing services is a huge revenue driver for us. Skilled nursing enjoys Medicare, Medicaid, private pay, HMO, and I'll say Capital Health Plan being our primary HMO that we use, and then ancillary charges. Dining services, of course, we have dining plans, but we also do catering services, extra meals, and guest meals. So our revenue quarter to date is actually up. Part of that's due to occupancy. So our occupancy, we're budgeted at 94%. We've been running much closer to 97%. Our actual is 10 million on a budget of 9.8. So it's a nice variance. Sorry. So some of our expense drivers, again, you've seen this before, but the biggest portion, just single portion, is going to be wages and benefits. So wages, you're aware, and we do keep bringing this up, we went ahead and gave our team members that $15 raise, even though we thought many of our competitors would just gradually put it in. We just went across the board and put in that $15. So wages were touched on by Amanda when she was here doing her presentation. And I'll reiterate one of the things that she said, which is we do a lot of salary surveys. We do salary surveys across the board, but we also look at different markets. And I'll post this. It may already be posted. I have to ask Laura, but we'll get this posted for you so that you can read the PowerPoints and study them if you wish. But we do conduct salary surveys. We're never going to be bottom of market or top of market. We want to be equitable and fair for the different labor markets that we pull from. So there's not another CCRC in our area, but there are hospitals, restaurants, and others where we're competing for the same talent. And of course, we have to take into account the benefits as well. Any full-time team member is going to have access to those benefits. And those benefits include health insurance and retirement. Also includes paid time off, things like that. So we expect to continue keeping up with the market. We're not going to let our team members fall behind and be poached by other markets. We want them to come here and stay here and enjoy working here. So some of our controllable expenses include office supplies, repairs, minor equipment, prescription drugs. And I'll tell you that Liana does a great job controlling office supplies. If you get a box of pens from Liana, you're going to have to sign in blood that it's going to last for a year. So we also control payroll, overtime, contract labor, and consultants. I'd like to touch on contract labor for a moment. Our health center is where we had used contract labor once before for a couple of years, and when Jeff Bell, our current administrator, came on board, he put that to an end. And I've got to say, I appreciate that very, very much. If we're going to pay a premium salary, let's give it to our staff. Let them have the overtime or the bonus for working those extra hours. And let's not give it to a stranger. So it was really important to us that he did that, and he has held the line for all these years. So I just have to give kudos to Jeff for his work on contract labor and reducing it. There are very few nursing homes, even within our system, the Westminster system, as well as communities in the area that do not use contract labor. So that is a very hard line that he has taken that has been very, very good for our star ratings and so forth. So I just want to give a shout out to Jeff for that. And then, of course, we use consultants as well. A typical consultant for us would be pharmacy. So we have a pharmacy representative that will come in and observe our med passes and look at our carts and check out our med rooms and things like that. So we do continue to employ people that will come in and audit us so that we are doing the best job we can, point out anything that we need to improve on. So yes, our wages are up. Right now, we have an applicant flow. I think our dashboard was 401 at the very last dashboard. So we have lots and lots of really good applicant flow for our open positions. And so we have continued to try and hire quickly for any vacant position. We really don't want to keep it open if we can avoid that and leave the burden to the other staff. So we have continued to improve in our hiring. You probably most see that in dining, if you go in the dining room and see the complement of servers and so forth there. So, and of course, benefits, when wages go up, benefits do as well. So under our controllable expenses, we have had 3.7 million on a budget of 3.4. So our expenses are a little bit higher than budget. And some of those, one that just comes to mind off the top of my head is cable. We did take on the Emerald Chase community. We have also added some cameras to key places. So we're installing cameras at kiosks and the garage, places like that. And with each of those cameras, we have to have a cable for the Wi-Fi. So the cable has gone up a little bit. Also, our monitors that are in the assisted living, things like that, they all have to have that cable wiring. And we don't change that budget in the middle of the year. So we start earlier in the year working on that, and then we project into the year. These were things that needed to happen. So we went ahead and moved forward with those. Also, landscaping, I think was a high one. You've had to write variance reports on landscaping, repairs, and maintenance. So those are the three that come to mind. Vicki? There are also non-payroll expenses, between general insurance, taxes. I apologize, I have cable in here. It is what it is. We did add cable, so the cable contract is what it is, but when we go and add cable outlets, then of course we're controlling that. We also have workman's comp reserves and utilities, and where my mind goes here was water. We've had an awful lot of things going on with our irrigation, as you know, and so that water bill has been extremely high. Some other non-payroll expenses are related to increases in occupancy, and we have flex accounts. Nursing and dining are two of our flex accounts. So there are dollars added into those for the additional people that are coming in, because we can't bring people in and not feed them. We also have convalescent days, medical supplies, medication. You've probably seen all of these. I'd like to touch on this, the sequestered percentage of HMOs. And Donna's here, so you keep me honest, Donna, the way I'm going to explain this. CHP is one of our primary HMOs. So when CHP says, hey, well, I'm just picking a number, we'll pay you $100 a day for a skilled nursing room. But if you're going to take all our business, we're going to only pay you may charge $100, we'll only pay you $75 because we're going to sequester the other $25. So if you want our business, you have to give up some of that money. And so that's what that sequestered means right here, percentage from HMO. So CHP pays us on levels, and so we turn in our information and they say, okay, this is the level you meet, and then this is what we're going to pay you. So there are non-payroll expenses, licenses, health and life insurance, and so forth. We use CHP here. We find it is the best value for our staff, and I know many, many of you use CHP as well. So under expenses, the non-controllable expenses are up. We have a budget of 1.4 and our actual is 1.3, so it's really close. And a property this big, that's a very tight variance right there. So if we combined everything together, our budget's 9.7 million and we came in at 9.6. So again, very tight margin. But the department heads do a good job of managing their budgets. So there are some things to share with you. Our revenues are, are very nice, and I have to give you the credit because it's many of you that refer neighbors and people to move in with us. Westminster Oaks has the highest number of resident referrals of all the Westminster properties. You blow it out of the water. And so because of you, we have more and more people coming in. And so we really, really appreciate that. The occupancy goals were surpassed. Right now we're at about 97.4 in both occupied and sold, so people giving us their 10% that are moving in. Many positions are filled, and the department heads have really done a good job of managing their expenses. And if there's a particular line item that they're struggling with, they give us an explanation. They give us a variance, and then we work towards solving that problem for the next month to try and make sure that we're doing everything we can to stay on or below budget, because we're very aware that it's your money we're spending, and we have to be good stewards of your dollars. And so we work very hard at that. So 2025 is looking really, really good for all the properties, but Westminster Oaks in particular. Our occupancy is strong. Our team member base is at 365. For those of you who've been here a while, prior to COVID, we were right around 400. We were right about 395. So we're making our way back. We're trying to fill those positions, and we emphasize to department heads it's very, very important to try to fill your positions as quickly as you can, but not with just a warm body, with somebody who has skill and talent to do that job well. And so Paul in particular, I have to give a shout out to Paul. He's walking in to my office with a green sheet almost every day, hiring people, bringing people in. He also has probably the highest number of students. If you look at high school, college students, he has that too. So he's got a really good team, and we have really, really good department heads, strong leaders in our departments. And I'll have to give a lot of credit to Vicki. You know, this is her strong suit, managing the budget and helping our department heads do a really good job of staying on task and on budget and understanding how things are to be coded, how to use our system. We have a pretty new accounting system, Acumatica, that we're all adjusting to. And so, and she's definitely the subject matter expert on those things, and Profix as well. So I just want to say thank you for all you do in helping keep us on task. So if there are any questions, I will try to help answer. And if not, we'll go on to the budget. Yes, sir. We got a microphone coming. Yes, sir.
So
Just put it on your chin.
So I had a couple of questions for you.
Okay. Will you ask them one at a time?
I absolutely will
Thank
do
you.
that. So, and we'll use staffing costs as an example.
Yes, sir.
So on your slide, you show, I think around an 8.5% increase in staffing costs over the previous quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But you're under budget. So does that mean that you had actually, from a budget standpoint, had a higher expectation of how much costs were going to increase in the quarter?
Yeah, the budget is basically based on being fully staffed. However, you have to take into account that you have turnover. You also have people on family and medical leave.
Right.
You have people that go on leave of absences. You have maternity leave. So you have various reasons why that particular line item might be under budget.
Right.
We want to be fully staffed all the time, but we know at any given time, you got people on vacation, leave, family medical leave, and so on and so forth.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, the other uncontrollable expense you have is inflation.
This is true.
And so a lot of people wonder, why are my rates going to go up? And a big chunk of that is due to just to inflation, which is completely uncontrollable.
And when we get into the budget slide, which that PowerPoint's going to be next, and I am showing you this prior to anybody sharing it with the board.
Okay.
There are some explanations in there that you'll probably find interesting.
Okay, so my question is, are you able to tell us how much of the cost increases are due purely to inflation?
We're going to go over all the cost increases that we're sharing with the board, which are pretty significant, from
Right.
property taxes, food, utilities, things like that.
Sure, sure.
And wages, the planned wage increases for our staff. So we have all of that in a pretty arduous budget presentation, and I apologize that it will be pretty long.
Okay.
But we actually, I took Hank's presentation to the board and copied and pasted
Okay,
each of those over so that you will hear everything that the board is hearing.
okay, great.
And of course, they have Q&A just like we have Q&A. So I'll try to answer your questions as well.
Okay,
But
great.
the board members also ask Hank questions. And
Sure.
so there are, yes, ma'am. I see another hand. Oh, and then a hand here. Yes, ma'am.
So, Shannon, the only question I had, and I understand about the expense, but you had a statement up there that the revenues that you received this, now, I'm not sure if this is by the third quarter or annually or just one quarter,
It's
exceeded
quarter
your
to date.
quarter to
So
date.
it's-
So that's your fiscal year.
It's 3, 6 months, yeah, it's 6 months into the year. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you only have to get to April, right? So you're got 4 months. Yeah.
Right, but this is only the second quarter because we haven't finished this quarter. We haven't closed the books on this
Okay.
quarter yet.
But you have
So we're
the-
behind a quarter. Yes,
but you
ma'am.
have the figures for that, right? Yeah?
Not until the books close, no.
Okay.
Mm-mm. And December
Um,
hasn't closed.
All right, let's just, your slide said that revenue exceeded projections by 7.3%. Is that
Yes.
right? I mean, so that would sort
Yes,
of cover
and that's
any-
occupancy. A great deal of it is occupancy. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
so can we assume that because the revenue was almost 10% more than expected, 7.3%, that there's not going to be a fee increase this year?
There will be a fee increase this year.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Shannon,
Yes, ma'am.
you just said that you have in the kiosks cameras.
Yes, they're being
Is
installed,
that-
and we had to run the cable to make the cameras work.
Well, just a question: is that for security, or is that to check the mail person, the mailman or mailwoman? I mean,
It was a specific request of several residents who asked, especially on Meandering Lane, that we add a camera there to that kiosk.
Okay.
So we also did it with Emerald Chase, knowing it would be the next email I got asking about the Emerald Chase. And then we already had one at the front island, and what we did was upgraded it. So we have a working camera that's been there, but it was so arduous to do any playback. If we had a question about something that happened at the entrance, that we went to Greg with Capitol Security and said, Greg, we definitely need an upgrade here. We need to be able to look very quickly at if there's an incident, an accident, something that happens. We'd like to be able to look quickly at what occurred. And so that's one of the things we're doing is we've updated that camera too. Yes,
Hi.
ma'am.
I have two questions. One is it possible for those of us who are interested in asking questions about the income and expenditures that is posted in the front lobby, to have a meeting maybe with Vicky, interested parties, so
Sure.
we can ask specific questions
Sure.
about that?
Sure.
And the second is, have you inquired of, particularly Capital Health Plan, an income stream that I'm not sure you're getting, and that is the $150 per member fitness subsidy
Mm.
that would add to the
You know what?
fitness
I have
budget.
heard that. I'm glad you brought that
And I
up.
really think you should pursue that. I don't know
Okay.
how many members we have here, but it would enhance any new programs that Meredith may be trying to
So they'd have to
establish.
recognize our fitness center
Yeah, but
as a
yeah.
legitimate gym.
Right.
Like
And we
the Golds,
signed
the
in with
Momentum, the
FOB.
Premier.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So there's a record that we've attended it at least
That's a great
6
idea.
times.
Thank you.
And so that would mean that we can have more in the way of fitness from that new revenue coming in.
Thank you for that idea. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question.
Oh.
what are our current total head count and what are budgeted head count today, roughly? Where do we stand budget versus actual today or the last time you measured it?
I believe it's 700 total.
No, I'm talking about employees.
Oh, today, we're 365.
And what's the budget?
I believe it's 380. Because we have some open positions. We're down to about one page
No.
of open positions, which is really nice.
My question was, what is in the budget? How many head are in the budget?
Have we seen a number on a statement of operations? Yeah. $385. $385. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, as a follow-up on the comment about resident input, I noticed you had a statement in there that resident input was considered heavily. What is the process for getting resident input
So-
in a systematic way, both in Orlando and here at Westminster Oaks?
The consideration that we hear from you, and I also just heard from Ms. Ferris, is that we don't want to have any unnecessary increases. We want to keep any increases as low as possible. And some people want no increases, which I totally understand. And so, as far as systematic, I cannot, off the top of my head, tell you there's a systematic way of providing input. We listen to what our residents tell us in that they do not want fee increases, if at all, but to be the least possible fee increases. And that is something that we take very, very seriously, because we know there's inflation to contend with in your daily lives just like mine, and there's also Social Security as a huge factor for you. So I know that people, when they see any increase over Social Security, are very concerned about that and want it to be minimized as much as possible. So to answer your question, systematically, I do not know of a way in which that is considered. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Meredith.
It seems the systematic mechanism for resident input is via the Residents' Council. So any comments or questions or suggestions should perhaps be routed through that pathway. Does that make sense?
Understood. So, and Ms. Jane has a comment as well. Yes, ma'am.
Well, as Residents' Council President, I am aware, and I have received the data that this information was based on. Actually, we're having a briefing meeting after this meeting to have any discussion before the board meeting, which is next week. So, you know, if you have comments, you know, mention to Shannon or any member of the Residents' Council. But we will be discussing this at our briefing meeting after the town hall.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Let me just speak up on behalf of FLICRA, the Florida Residents Association. There is in legislation a designated resident representative for the corporate board. However, it's not required. It's suggested. And I do think the Westminster Communities does have a resident on the corporate board.
We have one.
Yeah, so we're working on with FLICRA, so that's why I joined FLICRA. We've got to get legislation to enable our residents to have a voice in these corporate meetings. So FLICRA is on top of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? You're just dying to get to the budget, aren't you? Yes, sir.
This might sound rather trite, but with respect to getting resident input and perhaps even employee input, what about the idea of 2 suggestion boxes? One for residents to add or put in whatever they would like, and another one perhaps for employees. Just a thought, maybe trite, but what would you think?
We do have a suggestion box for the team members. We put that into place about a year ago. It was brought up in our retention committee because we do have a team member committee that meets together to discuss the things that would help us recruit and retain more team members. So we do have a suggestion box there. It would be a discussion for the council if you wanted some other means of suggesting things to us. Normally, I meet with the resident chair, president, and the council, and so that's how I hear a lot of the suggestions from the residents. So that would be your call if you want a suggestion box. Anything else? So you want to move on to budget? Yes? Okay. Things were proposed annual. So I started flipping through here and found that some of my words kind of crept to the top of this particular slide, but they're clear on all the others. So the staff were working trying to fix that as best they could, so thank you. So the proposed, and I underline proposed because this is not firm yet. Again, it's not gone to the board. You're seeing it first. So this would begin April 1st, 2025 and go through the year. And this was part of our mission statement. It's now our founding principles, committed to our program of stewardship, because we're using your resources and we need to do a good job of using your resources. Our budget philosophy, you've seen this probably numerous times, but monthly service fees pay monthly expenses, and entrance fees pay a host of other things, including capital improvements, vacancy, refurbishment, debt service, and so forth. So again, this comes from Hank's remarks to the board, which they will see on Wednesday. So I'm giving you a current year financial update as this overall life plan communities are viewed by Hank and his team. So one of the things that we have to do is offset the reimbursement that we're getting from Medicare and Medicaid. So Medicare is flat, Medicaid's gone up a little, but even I believe it's 8% that Medicaid went up, still really doesn't pay anything but room and board for our residents. It really doesn't adequately cover nursing salaries and the salaries of about the 190 people that service that building. So those are some of the things that we have to factor in as we look at managing our units, looking more to independent living residential units and assisted living units. Those are all private pay. And the insurance companies, as you've probably experienced, they don't want to pay if they don't have to. So even based on what we charge, we'll always, using HMOs, have a sequestered amount. So we look at alternate sources of revenue. So we're looking at an operating margin across the board of about 3.6%. And entrance fees are listed here. We'll need 276 for all the communities. Westminster Oaks, our goal last year was 45. I believe we came in at 44 entrance fees for our property. And current year financial update is we're looking at entrance fees of about $56.4 million. And a lot of it, we've got to continue to update our residences. We have to update our common areas. I can tell you, assisted living in particular, Oak South, have needed some attention, and so that's why we have those on the books. Also, they have some construction going on in St. Augustine and Jillington Creek, and those will come up, and that'll help their occupancy as well. So for budget assumptions, and I just want to thank Richard Corbett for looking over my quarterly as well as my budget, and giving me his perspective. So thank you, Richard, for your fresh eyes. So these are some of the things that we're looking at as major assumptions when we go into budget. So if you look at this, salaries are 56%. And that doesn't really surprise me. I don't know if it surprises you, but 56% of our expenses. So, and what we do typically throughout the year as we meet with our team members and go over their evaluations, we're looking at about 4% to give those team members increases into the next year. Those are merit increases. And so that assumes that they meet our standards, and we go over, we have an arduous process for evaluating our staff, and we ask our staff to evaluate us as well. And that's one of the things I did with my department heads, is I said, what can I do better and what can I help you with as well? Please tell me how I can best support you in doing your job. So those evaluations are ongoing throughout the year. So they don't all happen at once. The department heads happen at once. Those are in April. But everybody else, all the line staff, is throughout the year. It's based on their anniversary. So the budget assumptions also include staffing for the health center. So we look at staffing ratio of 2.5 hours per patient day for all of our nurse aides, and 1.1 hours per patient day for licensed nurses, which include registered nurses. So we have two types of nurses. We have LPNs and RNs. So LPN is the backbone of our industry, and the RNs do the assessments. So health insurance benefits for everybody who works 30, not 32 or 35 or 40, as in a lot of industries. We do it at 30. So anyone who regularly works 30 hours or more has access to our health insurance benefits, which in Tallahassee is CHP. So this surprised me. We budgeted for 10% increases in our health insurance rates, but we're not passing it on to the staff. We're absorbing it within our operation, so they won't have the burden of that 10% increase coming out of their paycheck. So for the budget, we're also looking at contributions of 403B. For those of you who don't know what a 403B is like a 401k. 401k is a for-profit, 403B not-for-profit. So our staff can take advantage of a retirement plan, and the board of directors on occasion adds to that, which is really nice when we're able to do that. So property insurance, which we had a tough year, and of course the people at the Shores in Bradenton had a really tough year. Over 70 people displaced from those residences that we had to find alternate locations for them to live. So we expect just property insurance to go up by 30%. So, and this is based on our insurance broker, what our broker's telling us to expect. We also have general and professional liability insurance. I believe the number that's supposed to go here is 5%. Let me look it up. Is it on the next? Okay, thank you. All right, I was like, where'd it go? So, okay. Take these back off. So, again, directors and officers. So, this covers our board members as well as our officers. We expect policy coverage limit of $10 million to increase by 5%. We expect food to go up 4%. I apologize if I'm not right in the microphone. And utility costs up 5%. So these are the trends for all of the Westminsters. The current trend right now for residential living is 93. So that's pretty flat. Skilled nursing, we're seeing It's harder and harder to bring people into skilled nursing, so we've seen the census in all skilled nursing suffering. Ours does really well, which I'm very thankful for, but I would say across the board, they've had to take some skilled nursing offline and do some combinations and reallocate skilled nursing from one campus to another. That happened in Bradenton. And then in assisted living, right now the current trend throughout is 95, and across the board, we're predicting 93. So inflation, that was brought up. So looking at 2.3 for inflation, Social Security increased only by 2.5. And Medicare and Medicaid rates, which affect the campus, the Medicare rates are flat. Medicaid has gone up some, but it's still our lowest payer. Then you have staffing and labor rates and other healthcare costs have increased, and again, every year we do recognize and reward our staff after their evaluations with increases. On occasion, we do market increases in the middle of the year if we see a real swing by some of the markets. Then they'll go and look at, the people at our home office will go and look at what we're paying them across the board and make those adjustments, and that does happen on occasion. So the management fee will not increase. So it's a flat 5.3 of budgeted gross operating revenues and entrance fees, net of refunds. So, and our budget does reflect our staff's commitment and our work to operate soundly. We spend a lot of man hours, and I'm looking at Vicki in particular, reviewing the personnel that we have and the positions that we have. And in nearly every case, we say, hey, we need them. We don't want to cut back. We actually added an HR position because we do have so many team members, and those team members have all kinds of needs throughout the day and week and year. Some of it's related to increases, some of it's related to software, some just want their paychecks printed, some want to understand the policies. I mean, so there's a nonstop stream of team members that need the time and attention of HR. And so, so what I'm sharing with you today is what will be recommended to the board on Wednesday. So things we don't budget for is disasters. Who would have thought we had 2 hurricanes come through and heavily damage 2 of our properties? So we don't budget for that. We don't budget for contributions through foundation and investment and losses. Who would have thought we had a flood April 11th here in the lower level? You know, we're still reeling from that. We still have so many people displaced because of our flood. And we're on our way to having all of that repaired, but it's an arduous journey. So expenses, part of what we do is we look at payroll and the number of team members that we have, the positions that we have. Do we have the right people in the right place? We did swap out a maintenance mechanic for a maintenance engineer because we feel like we just need a little more talent and bench strength in the maintenance department. I would think most people would agree that we need a little more talent and skill set, higher skill set in our maintenance department. So that's one of the things that we actually swapped out. So Kirana, in Kirana, we've had Kirana go into virtually every Westminster property. We decided we wanted to keep one of our nurses. The other one got assigned to home care, and so we kept her too. But we kept our nurse because we feel like our residents, at 500 plus residents who live here, they need the time and attention of our clinic nurse. She needs to lead level of care, wellness visits, urgent calls, things like that. And so we kept our person employed, and we're very, very glad that we did that. And they make a great team, Kirana and Westminster. So we meet and we go over payroll. Payroll's always first because payroll is the biggest line item that we have. And we look at staffing and labor and so forth. as part of the process, we look at rates, hours, and again, they do studies in our region to compile our labor budget, make sure we're paying people fairly and equitably. So we go to a budget meeting in November. Used to be in October, but I complained because it happened on Halloween and I couldn't trick or treat with the kids. That is how sensitive our leadership in Orlando is to the needs of its staff. When I complained that I couldn't go trick or treating because I was in budget, they moved it, and they moved it forevermore. Because they're that kind of people. They're so kind and want us to put our families first. And so from there, we sit for 3 days and go line by line over our budgets. We go look at our labor and then our non-labor, and we all talk about it. We try to learn from each other best practices. Sometimes we have a best practice in Tallahassee. Somebody in Orlando may have a best practice. Some may have a great GPO contract. One of the things we contend with here is that a lot of the contracts that they'll have in the Orlando and St. Pete area won't come to Tallahassee. And so there's, in some ways, and we've said this time and again, Tallahassee is unique. You know, we have our benefit of talent here, and we got to use our talent here. Do we bring people in from the outside on occasion? Absolutely. But sometimes the contracts we have are what we have, because those are the people that are here in Leon, McCulloch County, so on and so forth. But we go line by line over our expenses, and the per unit basis is important because it puts us all on a level playing field. So per unit, we have a really big campus here. Some of the campuses are really small. There are only 100, 200 people. So it's very hard to say dollar for dollar that this is the same or fair and equitable. So what we do is we go at per unit. So we look at number of team members, number of square feet, acres, meals served, things like that. So we try to put everybody on a level playing field so that we really can talk about, you know, where our value is and where our expenses are, and if we're out of line. And if for some reason we want more money on a per unit basis than somebody else, we have to justify that because that's your money. And sometimes we have a really, really good explanation. Sometimes we find out another property just does this better. And so we ask them, how do you do this? And who are you working with? And let us know so we can do a really good job. So it's a profoundly humbling experience, I will say. Those expenses are shared per unit. We also look at a traveling 12 months, and that's important when you're looking at utilities, summer versus winter, and also resident services expenses, because resident services has the holidays. So we know that there are going to be peaks and dips throughout the year in some departments, and a lot of it's explainable. So looking at a traveling 12-month is very, very beneficial to us. So this just happens to be an example that I was showing that Mr. Corbett took a look at. But we just did a line item on supplies. Again, this will be showed to the board. So the supply budget, which is what Leona is in charge of. So we'll just look here at what we're proposing for 2026 per unit. Our rank is 6. Again, we're the biggest property. We're 6. Look at our average for this past year. We're 8. Traveling 12 months, we're 10. Why is that? Because if you go ask Leona for a pen, she's going to make you use it for the rest of the year. You want to be a lower. You don't want to be number 1. Because that means you're the most expensive. So we look at our ranking. We also look at, Winter Park, Westminster Oaks, and the Bradenton. The 3 of us are the biggest properties, even when you combine us. And so we like to check with each other and say, okay, how are you doing that? Why is your elevator contract cheaper than mine? Why is mine more expensive than yours? And so this just gives you an idea of what we talk about. I have post-traumatic stress just looking at it. So we look at monthly and daily service fees. We do have daily, of course, in Health Center, and monthly for everybody else. So after we leave budget, we're given a couple more weeks to go back and ask any questions, tweak, go to the department heads, do you still really want this budget? And talk to them about it. We did make a few tweaks at ours, but we came up with a very, very solid budget for Westminster Oaks and spent a lot of time working on it. So before anybody sees it, we also consider cost of living, inflation, Social Security, and also what are our competitors charging. So a lot of what we do here, our competitors are going to be other skilled nursing in the area. There's about 6 of us. We look at other assisted livings. What do they charge? Other independent livings, there are not many, but there's some. What do they charge? The folks in Orlando and Bradenton and St. Pete have a lot more CCRCs there. Probably our closest is going to be Dowling Park. And the people there actually buy their houses. So it's a different animal. We also look at capital expenditures. So we look out about 5 years. I'll give you an example. So we have over 200 houses here. Are those 200 houses going to need a roof at some point, a new roof? Absolutely. So we budget every single year, we set aside capital dollars for any of the roofs that need to be replaced. So we projected that out. Also, if there are multiple things we want to do, say 3 floors of assisted living, we want to carpet that. We'll probably carpet one a year, then the next one the next year, and the next one the next year. We probably won't do it all at the same time. So we hear, I think the last really extensive list I got was from Laney, and I'm still working on some of your capital projects, but we get information from residents. We also get information from staff about what to put into capital. Do we need new kitchen equipment, things like that. So all of those are factored into what we recommend for our capital budget. So these are some. This isn't an extensive list of what capital we will have next year, but these are some of the top of mind. Update McGuire Center, Light and Sound. We all know that's needed. Villa Homes. Renovate nurses stations. Those are vintage 1997 nurses stations and floors. Boiler tubes, that came from Tim. Underground piping. Gutter guards. A lot of residents have asked for gutter guards. So we also have room and bathroom renovations. So we'll have some of that taking place. Actually, some of it's already taking place. We'll continue that. Transport buses. Man, I thought I'd get a standing ovation. See, I told you, Lynn. Oh, I don't even know who we want to give these buses to when we get new ones. Dining room refresh. You know, it's kind of dark in there. Might be nice to lighten and brighten it some. Pool house deck and deck, putting green, and landscaping. So recall that we did a tree survey from an arborist. And so to go and start cutting all those trees that need it, that will be an ongoing expense, and that'll be capitalized. So this is what the board will be looking at as well. They'll look at our previous year actual and current year actual and proposed budget here. So in independent living, we expect to move to 1.2 in our budget. And again, home health is going to go down, and one of the reasons home health will go down is because we now have a home care company here on the grounds. So we expect that this contracted home health that we've been using, that we'll find more and more people going to Westminster Home Care. So we're not doing away with it, but we believe that Westminster Home Care offers a really good, strong product. These line items here are nursing. So even though we're doing really well here at 1.3 million, so it's going to be pretty flat, but we still expect it to increase some. We also have outpatient therapy. Look at that jump. 74,000, and then assisted living at 601. And then we do have some other income that we get from car washes and guest rooms and stuff like that. So, so this gives you your total here at 3.5. So, 24 we were at 3.1. We went to 3.5. We're going to stay around 3.5. And again, this will be posted so you can look at it. So these are the expenses. So if you see, this is the expense category by cost center. We'll have resident services. This happens to be where our cable is. I know that sounds like a very strange place for cable to go, but the resident services is our catch-all. We have wellness, so this is Meredith's department. We have home health, companion care, that's a contract, but we do get revenue from it. We have dining and alternate dining, so you might want to categorize those together, 186 and 352. So we have maintenance and utilities. Well, maintenance goes way up. Utilities does too. Nursing actually is going down, and I'll tell you why. Because it's based on 94% occupancy, and we're exceeding occupancy regularly in nursing. So outpatient therapy. So with occupancy goes expenses. They go together. You have therapy at 58,000, assisted living 199,000, administration, property insurance, and management fees. Notice the management fees went down. So that puts our net operating income at 164,000. So this is where we've been the past 30 years. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question,
Yes.
because by the time we get through the budget, I won't remember it. What about?
We'll post it for you too. Yeah, so you can go and reflect on it. Yeah.
I just was wondering, there was a significant increase in the housekeeping projections, and does that mean we have other services?
Can I go back?
that we-
Is it here?
Yes, up
this
in
what you were looking?
housekeeping.
Yeah,
no,
so
not
that's-
that one.
Yeah,
the-
that's expenses.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The.
Yeah. We're right
from-
at 319. And we,
No, that's.
I'm
the-
sorry, I'm trying to follow you. Oh, yeah, 165 to 180.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
total.
yeah. I just was wondering, was that inflationary, or is that projected more services or personnel, or?
That's going to be expenses. I'm sorry. Contract cleaning, thank you for reminding me, because she does all the window washing. Right. Carpet cleaning and window washing, things like that. All of the contract cleaning goes through housekeeping. Yep. So that's based on the projected amount of contract cleaning we expect this upcoming year. Anything else on this slide? So this is our average rate increase over the past 30 years. So if you go back here, it starts in 1996. That's all the Westminster communities. That's all of us. We're part of that. We are part of that. So, so the proposed rate increases for, this is for everybody, we'll get to us, for everybody in residential, so this is what all the properties are looking at, 3.5 to 3.7. Assisted living 4 to 5, skilled nursing up to 4. If you look at previous years, some actually went up 12.5, 7, and 6.5. So that's pretty significant. So this is what we're looking at proposed for Westminster Oaks. We're looking at, as of April 1, we're looking at 3.5 for residential living and 4% for assisted and skilled. So, questions and comments? Yes, ma'am? I can always count on Marjorie. And then we also have a question up here. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I have multiple questions, but I'll keep it short.
Okay.
I know you're aware that you said that Social Security goes up 2.5 State retirement, which a lot of us depend on, is 3%. You're going up 3.5% with
Yes.
a 4% increase to staff.
Yes.
Does that 4% apply also to upper level management in Orlando, where according to the 990, our CEO makes 664,000, our CFO makes 530,000, and our COO makes 464,000?
I believe the board decides those salaries. The board decides the upper level salaries. We also have somebody here. Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. One, you mentioned that this information is available to residents.
Yeah, we'll
It is
post,
not
we'll
in the-
have Laura post it on my W Life for you.
Okay, because I couldn't find it anywhere. I
Yes,
couldn't
ma'am.
find it in the front lounge and so it would be very helpful because then we can raise specific questions
Yes,
after
ma'am.
we have studied it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't quite understand why, it would seem to me Tallahassee is a lower cost of living area compared to some of the metropolitan areas.
Mm-hmm.
And are you starting with an aggregate cost before you make the adjustments for the individual units? Does that,
No, they're the
Not-
same across the board.
it's across the board?
It's across the board. And I can tell you some of the other properties, they will have a higher proposed rate increase than we will.
Okay, because it
There's only
seems-
two of us at 3.5 and
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me if a community is being administered very fiscally sound,
Mhm.
there should be some rewards to that community
Yeah.
for having good management.
Yeah.
And so okay.
That's a very valid point, and that's where we also mentioned that sometimes the board will give the team members additional retirement funds, therefore, in their 403B. Yes, ma'am. Oh, who's next? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the chief officer's salaries.
No, I didn't mention the chief officer's
No,
salaries.
I didn't, not the number.
Ms. Turnbull did, yes.
What is their rate of increase?
Right, and when Ms. Turnbull asked me that, I said the board decides those types of increases.
And
that-
they don't announce that.
If they do, I don't know where they announce it. I think it's public record because you had access to it, right? Ms. Trumbull, yeah. So
Yeah, but
that is a
wasn't-
matter of public record.
But that isn't the amount of increase. So you would have to know.
You'd have to
where-
look at last year's and then compare it to
Right,
this year's,
okay.
right? Right.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have to always apologize for my background. I've been a lawyer for almost 50 years. So I'm back on Chapter 651.
Yes, ma'am.
And for any new residents that haven't heard me before, Chapter 651 provides the regulatory environment for CCRCs, like where we live. And
Yes,
in
ma'am.
any time that there's going to be a cost increase, and that's for the monthly maintenance fees, it requires that the facility, because that's all we can deal with. We can't deal with Orlando directly. But our facility has to provide the reasons by department cost centers for any increase in the fee that exceeds the most recently published Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers. Shannon, I don't know if that has been done in Orlando or you all had to do that, but I don't know what the current Consumer Price Index for urban consumers is, but is our fee increase within that? Because it has to be explained. And that's what the statute requires, so that everybody here will know
Correct.
why is it more than the Consumer Price Index, and in these categories. And quite honestly, I am completely confused about whether these categories are aggregate categories for. I mean, I know we're getting the budgets that apply here to Westminster Oaks, but I
Yes.
don't know if there's some factor from the other facilities that we're covering too. I'm just not clear on that. And the statute does require that these explanations be made, and that could be very easy. If it's just a Westminster Oaks category, whatever we're doing for supplies. And I'm a little confused too about, assisted living, memory care, Skilled nursing, I mean, those are separate charges. So it's not
Yes.
like we're trying to, through our monthly fees, cover expenses and supplies in skilled nursing, I think. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Those are billable to them,
Well, and
yes.
they're billable, and we have outside people who also use our services,
Correct.
presumably because they're really good. So anyway, I just, I am always concerned that if people have information, I think that's great, and then they'll understand better what the pressures are on you as our manager, and, you know, even if there's something in there from Orlando, that may be completely understandable. But is that information forthcoming, or, you know, whatever the statute requires?
So what you're saying is we need to do a better job by cost center.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, and I think for purposes of just the residents here understanding, well, where are these coming from? Because I'm still a little confused about the projections on revenue were kind of off. So are you building off of that last revenue projection, or are you just starting from scratch with a new revenue projection based on who's here? My understanding, for example, because I have a family member on the waiting list, is that the buy-ins now are 470,000. Is that right? For any
The
duplexes,
They're-
homes.
They're different for the different type and size of unit, yes.
Right, but this was supposedly for duplex. So that's a considerable increase over what we paid 3 years ago.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and I know that's a different fund, and that's a different source of revenue, but
Correct.
you know, that gets a little, the discussion then gets a little confused as to what that money can be used for versus what the monthly fees are used for.
Right, and
Right.
we tried to cover that in that second or third slide, which is monthly maintenance for monthly expenses, and then capital, which is that the buy-in you're referencing, goes to that listing, which includes refurbishment and capital projects on the campus. Yes, ma'am.
Shannon, the up front, when we walked in before we started, you had the screen say that the next fiscal year is going to increase from 0 to 17%. Now, is that definite now? In
No,
other words,
no.
somebody buying in now is going to pay 17% more than they did last year.
That's across all communities. There may be some that go up that much. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hey, Shannon. My question, I guess, is a little bit like Jen's question. When I was looking at, I think it was, well, I'm not sure now what category it was, but with taxes and insurance, I wondered if that was just counting Westminster Oaks, or that you put all the insurance for the entire group.
Yeah,
together.
I would say most of the slides, when it said life plan communities, is everybody across the board.
So in other words, we're paying taxes for people in Bradenton and
Well,
their insurance, which
The
would be
property
much
taxes are what
higher.
they are, right?
Yeah,
For-
so their insurance would be much higher being on the coast than ours would be in Tallahassee.
Mhm.
And then, so that's one of the issues I think that Janice was
And that makes
getting
sense.
at.
You
Yeah.
don't want to be paying for somebody
Yeah,
else's.
I don't want to be paying, because they're out looking at the ocean. and
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And we're not even in an evacuation zone.
Right, exactly.
Right, right. Well, except for the lower level.
Yeah.
We had to evacuate that.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. We did have waterfront property, thank you, Lynn. So, but we do expect our property taxes to increase, all of us. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure exactly who made the decision to outsource our clinic, and we had some really good quality people in there.
Mhm.
And I understand how outsourcing works, and people are made OPS, and that they do not get their benefits. They do not get the tips that we give them. And I'm concerned that that's what's happened here. We are now
We kept our
allowed-
clinic nurse.
You kept one clinic nurse, you put
Yes.
somebody else out, they don't get my tips, they, they have jobs, and they're grateful, but
Yeah.
they have been outsourced, and I don't know if they get the rest of the benefits that we have been guaranteeing to our employees. But if that is the tactic of the CEOs, is to outsource and to reduce, it doesn't bode well. And I know maybe the yard services that we depend on and a lot of the contractors we depend on, they do not get our benefits. But the people that are doing the home care now, they're not getting our tips.
They are part of the Westminster family.
Do they get the rest of the
They're-
benefits? Can they have health
They
insurance?
do get benefits. I don't believe, please correct me on this, Vicki, that they get the team member, they're part of the team member gift fund. They're not. So
Okay,
you are
so-
correct on that, yes.
Point is that outsourcing is not necessarily the most
The
humane
answer.
way to make your bottom line look better when you have taken it off from somebody else's income and livelihood. So I'm concerned about that. And I don't know how to use Curana. They don't do CHP, and I miss the clinic. So thank you.
Thank
and
you
the
for sharing that.
CEOs are very highly paid for making decisions what to do with our money.
Yes.
Please help with the budgeting if you know anything about it, because this is an awful lot to take on when this is not my field, and I want to be sure that you're doing a good ethical compass anyways with your employees.
And we do have an interim CEO at the moment. So as you're well aware, Terry Rogers left, and Hank Keith is the interim. And right after he became interim while he was on vacation. So that's what happens when you don't show up for a meeting. And so then the first thing he was hit with was 2 hurricanes. So it's baptism by fire for him for sure. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have a question about where the Environmental Committee and the Policy Committee will be discussing this as a result of the November report on putting solar in the community. There will be substantial savings. There will be substantial savings if this community initiated a solar project, if it was approved by you and Orlando. Am I to believe that any savings in electricity here is going to be spread out over the other communities, so we are not direct beneficiaries of that saving by the way the budget is being constructed?
No, I don't think our savings benefits other communities. Our savings benefits us. No, it would not be a revenue source. It would be, no, we don't. But you have to be willing to put out the initial cost. So there's a lot more to discuss on that particular topic. Yeah. Again, it's too early to comment on any of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question that can't be
yes, sir.
addressed.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question that, this isn't the meeting for it, but when will the meeting be when the maintenance director discusses what the decision is about how to handle the repiping of Oak South and the first 3 floors of the Perry Center? Because of
Perry
the,
Center? Okay.
the first 3 floors of the Perry Center and Oak South were built at the same, or have the same age air conditioning pipes.
We can ask him to do that at the next town meeting if you like.
Okay, thank you.
Will you text him that? Somebody text him? Okay. Other questions? Anything else? We'll get this posted on My W Life for you. And again, thank you to Richard Corbett for all his assistance. Yes, Jane. If you get her a microphone, get Jane a microphone so she can speak. Okay, some announcements. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Shannon, the time and the energy just to be a part of the information gathering that she is a part of and meeting with Orlando. And I don't know if you all know that as a Residence Council president, I meet monthly with all of the team members in Orlando with a Zoom meeting. Every Residence Council president is in attendance, an opportunity to share, an opportunity to tell what's happening here at Westminster, and to ask any question that we have. Shannon has provided to the Residence Council president, which I am the designated individual. I will be attending the Zoom meeting next week. And, you know, there's a lot of questions because I had lots of questions before I became a Residence Council president. Didn't realize what was all involved, but you are a part of a whole entity, an organization, and, you know, the Residence Council president is an active member. And we do have a resident on the board, and that's Bill Hall. And Bill Hall meets with us every meeting with Orlando, as well as once a month, we have a Residence Council president meeting with Bill Hall to discuss any issues that are brought up. So, you know, in terms of communication, these are things that I was not aware of until I assumed this position. But I do want to thank Shannon for sharing with all this information. It's not a secret. Transparency's out there. I have received this document last week to review. Richard Corbett, who's in charge of our financial committee, and he reviews all of this information and shares with Shannon in terms of how to communicate better all of this information, because it's a lot to take in. So I just wanted to add that on to Shannon's presentation. I do want to mention that today, maybe I should close this, have it closer. Today at the end of the office time, at 3 o'clock, if you are interested in nominating someone to be on the Residence Council board, we have 4 positions. So we do have a list of names, and the nominating committee is going to be reviewing and interviewing people. But there's still an opportunity if you're out there and you would like to get involved and participate as a member of the board. Put your name in the hat. Also, Marianne Price indicated that Monday at 2 here in the McGuire Center, the OLLI classes, which are going to be phenomenal for this session. Also, there's an art reception. Our art committee has new artwork in the dining room, and there's a reception Sunday at 3 o'clock. And our communication committee has been very, very active. And they're interviewing and talking to a lot of new residents, because we have 97%. So we have a lot of happy people. But every now and then somebody moves in and the hot water tank's not working and something's happening. And we just want to do a better job at meeting those individual needs. And thank Peter Butzine for meeting with the new residents. And there's going to be a new module soon that's going to be on My W Life that has lots of questions and answers for new residents. So I think that does it for me.
Well, if I can add just on to that, the My W Life module, I think, is going to be excellent. And we met with Kelly Skiba to become our new resident navigator. She's already reached out to somebody who hasn't even moved in yet. And she'll be going over those topics with them to make sure that if they have any questions, that she can help facilitate getting those matters resolved very quickly. And so Kelly Skiba, our volunteer coordinator, has done an awesome job being willing and helpful and finding websites, things like that, participating in our meetings now, our working inventory meetings that we have with marketing and maintenance, and reaching out to incoming residents to try and troubleshoot and make their move-in a little bit smoother than some of yours has been. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to the solar heating thing.
Yes.
I could be wrong about this, but I stayed after the last meeting on solar power and talked to the guy who made the presentation.
Yes.
And I believe that he said that if we do that first phase, all that stuff that he was talking about putting on these roofs, that would pay for about a quarter of the power needed by the Perry building. That is not a tremendous savings. It sounds to me like a huge expenditure, and it would take many, many years to pay off the cost of putting that on. I, for one, am not sure I want to pay for that. So can somebody check up and see if I'm all wet and don't know what I'm talking about?
Well, I'll say that Jane and the council heard your remarks, because the recommendation would have to come through Jane and the council. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've been involved with this solar project, and you're absolutely right. It's very much a work in progress. We really don't know if it will happen, when it will happen. But the current projection is that the return on investment would be more than 200%, and that the payoff time will be 7.5 years. Now, you know,
that was in the
will turn
presentation.
out to be correct when we do the final calculations. We don't know, but it looks promising.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody else? Yes, yes, ma'am.
If you all want to have some fun, come Monday night and sing along with us for patriotic time. We've got a patriotic time. The singers will be here. The other people will be here, and we're going to have all of you all singing these old-fashioned songs on patriotic stuff. We've got a whole new year. In fact, it's going to be a Happy New Year concert. So,
thank you.
Please come. We need you.
Thank you for ending us on a happy note. All right. Thank you again.